I was born and raised in Long Island, New York. After I graduated high school, went to college in Connecticut, the University of Hartford. After graduating there, I took a job with the NYPD. Worked there for 3 years. It was the type of place, though, it's very expensive to live. I lived in a shoebox apartment, the type that's so small when you open your bedroom door, it actually hit my bed. And one day I woke up and said, is this really what I want for my life? So I decided to move down to Houston, transferred down there a little over 12 years ago, and the rest is history. Moving down to Houston was the best decision of my life. Created a whole different opportunities for me and my family, and it certainly led me in this direction where I was able to get on the board at our local lodge, climb the ranks there, eventually became president of our local lodge, and now I'm the national vice president of the FOP. Well, my start is an interesting one. I'm fortunate to have a mentor by the name of Ray Hunt, who was the president prior to me. And he stopped me one day and asked if I wanted to be on the bargaining committee for the contract. And as a young guy, that was kind of exciting, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to get involved. There was a lot of problems that I saw. And he said, how do you expect to change anything unless you get involved? And that simple quote, phrase, whatever you want to call it, completely changed my career trajectory. Instead of worrying about police work, I started worrying a little bit more about union work. I got on the board shortly thereafter, and the rest is history. So I have been a board member in our local. I was then the second vice president in our local, and then I am the president of our local. We represent over 5,300 police officers in Houston. After I was president for a while, an opportunity arose where I could run for national vice president of the FOP, and I jumped at it. And fortunately enough, the membership saw fit to elect me, and it's been a wild ride ever since. So I've served on several committees and started our own committees. I've served on the bargaining committee, and I've actually been the lead negotiator on our last contract and this current contract we're going into. I've also served on our education committee. I've served on our Safe Ride Home program, where we started a program that officers could get a free ride home if they had too much to drink while they were out. I started a complete standalone nonprofit called the Houston Officers Peer Assistance to provide peer support for our members, and a host of other committees, including our Ways and Means, Finance, things like that. But I've been doing a lot since I've been involved. So I think my favorite and the most impactful has to just be being on the contract negotiating team, the labor team. Sitting down in that room, it's a lot of stress because you have the weight of 5,300 officers and 5,300 families on your shoulders. But the benefit and the sense of satisfaction that you get from doing that position when you get them pay raises that are changing the lives of your members and their families. That's one less extra job they got to work, or they don't have to work overtime because you got them that raise, or you got them the extra time off for them to take that vacation with their family. It's extremely rewarding because you've had that impact. You were directly involved. So that's probably the funnest part of my job. I'd be remiss if I didn't say the attitude from the public towards law enforcement has changed drastically just over probably the last 5 to 6 years. And I think if you ask any officer, the silent majority still supports us. But, the silent majority isn't going to show up at a council meeting to tell the council how much they love them. And they're not going to go organize a march to talk about how much they love police officers. These folks have jobs, they have families, they have lives, but we still have that support. But the other side of that coin is we have a vocal minority who have tried to make us out to be the enemy. And there has been times where media and opportunistic politicians have been all too happy to partner with them and throw the hardworking men and women of law enforcement under the bus. And it's not right, because we all know that 99% of us are going out there, we're doing the job every single day. We care about the communities we're in. Sometimes we care more about the communities than their own community members do. And for us to be painted like that, it's extremely unfair. And it's why I'm so passionate about pushing back against the anti-police rhetoric, combating the false narratives. But it can't just be the national FOP, but we all need to be involved with this. Whenever it happens in your community, you need to speak out and speak up for the hardworking men and women of law enforcement, because nobody else is going to do it, so we have to. I would say my most significant accomplishment has been at the local. I'll split it up. At the local, it's been successfully negotiating contracts, getting them consistent pay raises, consistent time off, and making it just a better overall work environment and being a voice for our officers. Nationally, I would say my biggest accomplishment thus far is just pushing back. Just giving us a voice, getting out in front of the cameras whenever there's an opportunity to make sure everybody knows what we stand for, that we are the hardworking men and women of law enforcement, and that we care about our communities. Because I feel more than anything, now every officer wants a pay raise, but more than that, they want a voice and they want somebody to stick up for them. Well, I think what I'd really like to see is much more youthful engagement. You know, obviously, we have a ton of experience here within the FOP, and it will always be extremely valuable, but we need to start bringing up the next generation. We need to make sure they're trained. We need to make sure that they're ready to take these positions so that when senior, more experienced people want to move on, we have someone that can fill that void. That's extremely important to always have succession planning on the tip of our minds as we talk about these types of things. But also what I'd like to see is the national, which is what we're doing right here at Leadership Matters now, is giving the locals the playbook that we have. We are all so experienced and we've done so much, but we need to make sure that the locals are trained on how to handle a viral incident, how to handle their books, how to handle the use of the database system. We need to make sure we're educating all of them so that they have the resources necessary to do their job and be successful. You know, I'll be honest, it wasn't always on my mind. You know, I was just really happy doing what I was doing in Houston. I think when I started to think about it was just, how many times have you turned on the news or the national news, or you open up Facebook or Twitter and you just see police officers getting beat over the head, thrown in the mud, thrown under the bus, whatever phrase you want to use. And I just got tired of it. And I wanted to provide that strong opposing voice, and we were already doing it in Houston. And I think just the seminal moment was just, I just had enough. Like you couldn't sit there and watch it anymore. And I thought if there's an opportunity for us to expand, for me to have the opportunity to spread that voice, to teach others to spread the voice, then it's my duty to do it. I mean, I became a union rep, I became an FOP rep to help people. That's why I do what I do. I want to help officers. And I just felt I could do it on a grander scale. I don't think you ever quite get your feet settled in when you're representing 350,000 people. You're always on your toes. But thankfully, we have incredible leadership in President Yost. And not only is he allowing me to do what I need to do, whether it's developing a mobile app or doing national interviews and radio interviews and things like that, but he's also mentoring. You know, he's also mentoring me. He's teaching me things that I didn't know. And that's kind of that wealth of experience that we've talked about. And under his leadership, I mean, we've just hit the ground running. I don't think we've stopped running. And I don't foresee when we're going to stop, but we're going to continue to do a great job for everybody. So I'll be honest, there is no way I could be doing this without the support of my wife. My wife, who is a police officer, is absolutely incredible. She's 100% supportive, and without her, there's no way I could do this. I think it's important for anybody who's in a position of leadership to make sure you have that balance. I think sometimes people go, what are your hobbies? I go, I don't have time for hobbies. You know, when I'm not working, I spend every moment with my daughters and my wife, and I try to spend as much time as possible, and I make sure to make every swim meet, every dance recital, every big moment like that, I make sure that I'm there. And I think it's just important that who's ever watching this, if you are working hard for your local, if you are in a position like this, you have to take the time for your family, and you have to take the time to take care of yourself, because, you know, the phrase is, an empty well gives no water. So you need to make sure that you're healthy, you're refreshed, you're the one spending time with your family so that you have that energy to then help everybody else. So let me be clear, and I'm gonna speak right to the camera now. I do not drink energy drinks. I do not drink them. I never have. This is all caffeine. So I do drink a couple cups of coffee a day. But me, I'm just passionate about the job. I really, really am. I love representing police officers. It's extremely fulfilling work, and it's so cliche because, like we all say, we became a police officer because we wanted to help people. I became a union rep because I wanted to help officers. I'm passionate about it. And it's easy to be passionate about a group of people who care so much, whether it's they care about their community or their families or their coworkers. It's easy to be excited about people like that because I know the great work that they do every single day. They just need someone to highlight it for them. I think there's several things. Number one, and President Yost talks about this all the time, you know, the us versus them mentality that we're sometimes cast into. I really would love to just tear that wall down and build a bridge with our community so that when there is a viral incident or when there is an officer involved in something, the first jump from the media or the part of the public that maybe doesn't support us isn't this officer did wrong. Instead, maybe that first jump could be, let's see all the facts before we react and create something that we can't then contain. If we can accomplish that, even on a small scale, it makes the community safer, it makes our officers safer, it helps with retention and recruitment, that maybe people realize, hey, the public really does support us. I think that's a huge goal for us to have. But another thing for me, just on a more personal level, is I want to make sure we're communicating better with one another, all officers across the nation. That's really important because we all know what happens in Texas affects Tennessee, what happens in Tennessee affects California, and we all need to be talking to one another, what to be on the lookout for legislation that was passed in this state that could be coming to yours, or any other number of situations, and we need to make sure we're all talking to one another. Well, I think number one, the message I would send is make sure your people know that you're fighting for them. Share all the great things that you're doing with your own people. Make them understand how great it is to be a member of the FOP, to be a part of your local. I think that sometimes as police officers, we didn't get into this to get a pat on the back. You know, nobody wants the pat on the back. It's great when you get it, but nobody necessarily wants it. And I think we're almost to a fault the same way when we rise to leadership roles within our own lodge or the national. We don't want to talk about all the great things we're doing because we don't want to just, hey, I'm not asking for the pat on the back. But we need to talk about it. Folks need to know what we're doing. We need to know, they need to know that you're fighting on their behalf, that you're doing all these things for them, because they need to know just how much you care. And the only way you do that is by telling them. Well, the fist bump, it was not planned. I was just really feeling it in that moment. I'm a passionate guy, and you know, when people got up and started clapping and people were yelling and everything, I was just caught up in the moment, and I was just like, yeah, I was just identifying with everybody that was cheering. It was a really exciting moment. Probably like top lifetime moments for me too. Obviously, birth of my kids, my marriage and all that. But for a little further down the list, that was just a really cool moment, and I was really feeling it. And looking back, I'm happy I did it. It was just a show of support to everybody that was supporting me. Well, I think the message that I give to everybody is we got this train rolling. Hop on. We're going to continue to roll. We're going to continue to fight for the hardworking men and women of law enforcement on every topic, whether it's legislation in Washington, whether it's legislation at a local level in your state, whether it's fighting back against the anti-police rhetoric and the false narratives. The train's rolling. Get on, because it's going to be a fun ride.